Over the years, we have been blessed with so many great action films. Even more recent action movies have managed to wow audiences today. But action films and every other films usually stick to the same filming format, and for a while I've thought about why hasn't anyone made a film entirely shot in the first person, especially an action film that's shot in the first person. Well, that film has finally come in the form of Hardcore Henry. Right off the bat, I'm going to tell you that I loved this movie. I had a fun time watching it. This was one of the most anticipated films that I was waiting to see this year. I am happy to say it exceeded my expectations. I haven't had this much fun since I watched The Raid 2 for the first time. This movie is a very innovative movie experience where it makes you feel like you're the hero who's thrown into these insane action set pieces. And speaking of action set pieces, the action itself was incredible. This movie has everything an action movie needs, like amazing gunfights, car chases, and some awesome close combat. While watching this movie, I kept on wondering how they did some of the stunts and effects in this movie. I honestly think that this movie was way better than Deadpool, and I loved that movie. One of the things that this movie did better than Deadpool was the violence, and let me tell you, this movie is extremely brutal. I was actually surprised that they played this in theaters because of how brutal it was. In this movie, people are getting riddled with bullets, beat up, blown up, and even getting ripped apart. I feel like this movie was way more violent than any Tarantino film. Hell, even the opening credits were violent, which was a slow-mo montage of guys getting murdered, and it's probably one of the best opening credit sequences I've seen. Now, before you go out to the theaters to see this, I advise you to know what you're getting into, because this movie isn't gonna be for everybody. I felt it was made for all the gamers out there, especially the ones who are big fans of first-person shooters, because the story is laid out like a video game. A quiet, faceless protagonist wakes up feeling more powerful than he ever was and must save his wife from a bloodthirsty warlord. So, he gains the help of a recurring character who helps him get from point A to point B while killing a whole bunch of goons who get in his way. So as you can see, this is not a very complex story. But to me, that is not a bad thing, because if they tried to take time to explain everything, then the film would have brought the non-stop action to a halt. And I'm glad that they didn't do that. So if you're looking for a complex story, you're not going to get it here. In fact, the closest thing you'll get to a story is through the character Jimmy, played by Sharlto Copley. Jimmy is this character who keeps popping up each time as a different character and helps out Henry throughout his adventure. During this movie, you wonder why he keeps showing up as different characters, but it all gets explained later on. Anyway, Sharlto Copley is great in this movie. He adds a lot of the movie's comedy and is just plain entertaining. This movie made me realize that he needs to be in more movies. He's just an awesome actor. Now, since we're in character territory, let's go over the rest of them. Estelle, played by Haley Bennett, is basically the Princess Peach of this movie, and she shows up in tiny little spots until the end. There's not much to her character, but I thought she did pretty good with what she was given. The villain known as Akan, played by Danila Kozlovsky, was pretty goofy, and that's not a bad thing. You can just tell that he was having a lot of fun playing this role, because it was just fun to watch him play this very eccentric villain. Lastly, I cannot forget the star of this movie, Henry, played by, I don't know. But it was great to experience everything through his eyes. Also, what's great about this movie is that it manages to show you the type of character Henry is through his body language. Overall, I had a blast watching this movie. I've already seen it about 3 times, and I recommend you all do the same, because this movie really deserves it. If you want to have a great time at the movies, then go see Hardcore Henry. However, if you're one of those people who always want a gripping story out of every movie, then just stay home and pop in Room. Trust me. Also, if you're prone to extreme motion sickness, then don't go see this movie, because they actually supplied barf bags at one of the screenings for this movie. Well, that was my review of Hardcore Henry. And while we're at it, let me know what you all thought about Hardcore Henry. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you puke in your bucket of popcorn? Post about it in the comments below. Alright, that's it for tonight, and I will see you all later.